Hello, everyone. I'm John Fisher of All About the Jersey. Let's redo the 2015-16 New Jersey Devils season at Eastside Hockey Manager. We just completed April. The Devils made the playoffs on the last day of March, and as you can see by the schedule here, the playoffs have gone pretty well. Yes, you can see that the Devils obviously had to take on our hated rivals in the first round, and as you can see, they must have prevailed because they're playing the Washington Capitals, and even, the Devils actually won that first game because this is a realistic simulator, and presumably there must be something in the code to make sure that Washington always has issues in the second round of the postseason. But we need to go over all the other games first. Let's finish up the regular season, and then we'll talk about the Ranger series, and then we'll talk about where they currently are and what's going to happen with this series. So, first and foremost, thank you to everybody who didn't get too mad in the comments at All About the Jersey about me making an executive decision to get Milan Mahalik. Chris Calabrese, Elias Still Rocks, Norton Nemesis, Al Slammers, Lowrider 711, and Medic SBK have all stated that, yeah, it would be a good idea to play Keith Kincaid, and so that's what I did. I took Al Slammer's advice of playing Kincaid 3 games out of the 4 and giving Schneider the very last game, so he has a game and he's in good form going into the playoff series, which turned out against to be our hated rivals. So let's start with that. So Keith Kincaid's first action was against the best team in the Eastern Conference in Tampa Bay, and the Devils actually ran on them. Once Tampa Bay got up, the Devils just never looked back and just kept piling up the goals. Palmieri, Josefson, Stepniak, and Palmieri with an empty to really seal things out. Kincaid did play well in his original debut with an 8. Devils, for the most part, were actually pretty solid. You had excellent games from Lusty, Stepniak, and Henrique. That line really carried things. They have been the first line with Camilleri out, with Mihalik taking a secondary line position with Travis Zajac. So, but all good results against a pretty good Lightning team. So that's a good start to the month. Devils took on Buffalo, and here the quote-unquote bottom 6 players really shown in this one, with Elias, Rutu, and Mateau putting up tallies to get on the board. Kincaid, again, he was very good. He was named 3rd star of the game. The Devils, for the most part, weren't as dominant, but they didn't need to be. Buffalo kind of stinks in this season here. They never really got going. They aren't doormats like they were in real life at this time period, but they were getting the job done. But the Devils are just that much better, and they proved their quality this way. Patrick Elias was named 1st star of the game, and Rutu got 2nd star of the game, presumably for scoring a goal. With the Lightning, the run back, this one was just the Lightning just pounding the crap out of the Devils. They outshot them 36-19 and gave up 3 goals in a row. The Devils never came close. It did not help that the Lightning got going with 5 straight power plays all in the first period, with the last one carrying over into the second and leading to that first goal against the Devils. So in this one, Kincaid actually played well, but a bunch of guys, not very good performances. Merrill was kind of stinky. Elias was kind of stinky. But the Lightning just, they just ran them over. They got bodied. But the good news is that the season ended with Schneider back in net, and even though Tyler Bozak scored first, Henrique provided an equalizer. Mahalik scored in the second period, and the Devils held on to win. Very solid performance. They only gave up 19 shots in total. And again, lots of 8s and 7s as opposed to 6s and 5s that you see more so on the Maple Leaf side. So the Devils ended the season with a 7-2-1 run. Very good. If we can jump to the standings for the Eastern Conference, the Devils did finish 5th in the East. They finished 3rd in the Metropolitan, so the Capitals just got ahead of the Rangers, and the Devils just held off the Islanders. So the Devils and the Rangers were set to meet up in the first round. The Blue Jackets did get in over Carolina. Pittsburgh had some nice spoiling moments at the end, but it was just too little too late from them. And fun fact about the Flyers here, even though they finished ahead of the Sabres, they actually fired their coach in the last week of the season. They told Denis Savard to get out of here and hire Ted Nolan, because when you have a lost season, you got to fire the coach twice, right? Don't wait until the next season to start from scratch, get some draft picks, get some signings, and build from there. No, just throw that guy out in the last few games, because that will mean something. Anyway, so that's what was the East, and in the West here, the Stars predictably finished first. The Oilers actually did make the playoffs and won their division, which is how you know this is not exactly a realistic simulator, fully realistic, I should say. It is a video game at the end of the day. The Coyotes basically got run over, and it was a little tighter up top, but the Wild were the ones that got in over everyone else. Anyways, just let's quickly look at some stats. Seguin led the league in scoring and led the league in assists with 61. You see John Moore here. I'll show him off a little bit. In terms of goals scored, Kyle Palmieri's 28 was enough to lead the Devils, and he did make the top 50, so that was nice. Other than that, though, no Devils made the overall top 50 in scoring. If we look at just defensemen, John Moore is the sixth most productive defenseman in the entire NHL with 10 goals and 41 assists. Very nice from him. Matt Niskanen turned out to be the Erik Karlsson as opposed to, Erik Karlsson himself. If we look at rookie skaters, your leading rookie scorer was Connor McDavid, followed by Sam Bennett and Jason Aikson. Okay, one of those three doesn't belong. Sergei Kalinin actually ended up with 21 points, so he ended up in a nice spot on the list. And of course at goaltender, Keith Kincaid's 3 games were very good, but let's be real here. Schneider's the man, and if he doesn't win the Vezina, I'd be absolutely shocked considering he's got 8 shutouts, 45 wins, best save percentage over any goaltender that's played over a handful of games. And oh yeah, he played 79 out of 82. I think that's worth a trophy in of itself, but that's just me. If we jump quickly to the Devils. So I'll show off the playoff scoring a little later, but here's how the end of the season ended up. So Henrique was our leading scorer, Moore close behind. Lusty turned out to be very productive all season long, was a very good forward with a 7.33 average rating, very nice from him. Palmieri got the goal scoring going after a rough start. Stepniak was productive all season. Camilleri getting injured was kind of a bummer, but he wasn't on the same torrid pace as he was in real life 2015-16. Nevertheless, you could see that the Devils in scoring were not as productive, but there's a better distribution because you got more contributions out of a Patrick Elias, Yuri Lusty, Stefan Matteau, Reed Boucher with 10 goals, John Moore with 10 goals, and so on and so forth. Picking up Mahalik was a smart idea, and if I were able to get him earlier, I think the Devils would have been even more productive than they were. In any case, that's enough of that. Let's talk about the playoffs. So, our hated rivals, 7 games. Let's get to it. First one, kind of a bummer. It goes to overtime. Oscar Lindbergh with a not a late goal. It was early in the third period. But they definitely bodied the Devils 34-20 in terms of shots. And in overtime, Kevin Klein scored a power play goal. It was very much a bummer to see the highlights watching Adam Larson get the hooking penalty and just knowing that the goal was going to come, and unfortunately it did. So in that first game, Schneider was very good. Lusty was very good, enough to get the star of the game. But again, this is the playoffs, and whoever wins matters more than whoever gets the first star of the game. So let's move on to the second game, and this one went much better for the Devils. Stepniak with an early goal, Zuccarello with an equalizer, but Jelena threw in a long one to get them ahead, and Mahalik scored a quick one right after one to really get the lead. Matteau sailed in an empty to seal it. A much better performance all the way around with the Devils. Many more 9s and 8s out of multiple forwards like Mahalik, like Matteau, like Palmieri, like Henrique, who only got an assist but still got a 9 because he was very good. Schneider was very solid as well. The Devils outshot them too, 29-20, which was very nice to see. So, and Rick Nash did nothing. Just pay attention to that for a little bit. Go back to the Prudential Center, which apparently oversold at 18,000 people. But this one was another overtime heartbreaker where Derek Brassard got an early goal. Tuomo Ruutu of all people, because in the playoffs, you got to get goals from guys who don't really do a whole lot. And Tuomo Ruutu is definitely a guy who does not do a whole lot. So he got in an important goal. That was good to see. But overtime came, and Ryan McDonough, unfortunately, sent the Devils home unhappy. Again, the Rangers outshot the Devils 31-21 here, so it's hard to say that the Devils didn't get what they deserved. And, again, you look at the ratings here. You see 7s, you see some 8s here. You see mostly 6s and a couple 5s with a handful of 7s as well. Elias was very good. Schneider was good. The rest of the team, not so much. So that was definitely a bummer. Fortunately, and this is something I got to highlight here. The Devils did win this game, and pay attention to the time here. Henrique scored with 3 seconds left in regulation. When I do the simulation, I watch the key only highlights, which for a hockey game is basically the goals. Show me the goals. But EHM's simulation loves to show off the last 2 minutes or so in regulation or in overtime, even if there are no goals, presumably just to build up drama, to say it's the end of the game, let's see what happens. So all season long, it's basically, okay, last 2 minutes, nothing's going to happen. It'll just, get me excited or whatever. But no, Henrique actually potted in a rebound to score a very important goal, avoid going back to overtime, and most importantly, tying up the series. And this was also a big win in the fact that the Devils took all 4 penalties in the game. They got outshot by 6, and the Devils were able to steal a win, so very good for them. Schneider was very good. Lucy was a 10. And other players were just better all around, whereas the Rangers, nobody really stood out other than Eatum. So good for the Devils. It was an important one. Unfortunately, on Friday, the Rangers took a commanding lead, so to speak, with a 3-2 series advantage with a dominant game. Again, Rangers outshot the Devils 31-21. Stoll, Fast, Hayes, Miller. So not even their big guns. As mentioned, Rick Nash has done nothing. But it doesn't matter because when guys like Jared Stahl and JT Miller and Emerson Eatum are really making you pay and making you suffer, then it doesn't matter if Derek Brassard or Rick Nash are just hanging on in the game. The Devils were just not very good beyond John Moore and Corey Schneider. So this was very disappointing, but fortunately, Sunday in the Prudential Center, bodied 3-0. Lee Stempniak, Patrick Eliash with the insurance, Lucy to seal the game. Excellent work from Schneider, who was perfect with 23 saves out of 23 shots. All around the Devils side, you see only Josefson was a 6. Oh, and Palmieri and O'Neill were 6s. But everyone else was a 7 or an 8, meaning they did very well. And the Rangers didn't do so well. So, the Devils outshot the Rangers for once, even though the Rangers had a decided advantage of having 5 power plays to the Devils 2. The fact of the matter is this. The Devils outplayed the Rangers and won decisively to force a Game 7. And this Game 7, oh my, this one looked like it was going to be a heartbreaker because Tanner Glass scored on a breakaway. That's not how you want to start a game. And then JT Miller pounded in a rebound. Not good, but Henrique provided an instant response to give the Devils life. Lee Stempniak scored about halfway through the third period to tie it up. And then this time is not a misprint. This really does say 161 and 13 seconds. 161 minutes. That's 6 overtimes. The Devils and Rangers on let's look at this again, a Tuesday night went into Wednesday at presumably 3, 4 in the morning, maybe 5 in the morning even, with 6 overtimes. They played at least 2 games of hockey. They came very close to playing 3 full games of hockey here. In fact, let's look at the highlights. We're looking at the highlights for this one. So you can see the anguish and all the stuff that's going on here. So this is goal number 1. And it's just a throw-up play where Lee Stempniak gets beaten by Tanner Glass, and Tanner Glass scores a goal. It's probably the greatest moment of Tanner Glass's career, both in real life and in the simulation. And JT Miller, just keeps up with the play and gets ahead of Schlemko, makes it 2-0. But the Devils will provide a response. Jelena passes it out. Lucy throws it in. Huge, juicy rebound for Henrique to throw it back past the False King of New York. Now we're in the third period. Jelena throws it up to Stempniak, and Stempniak just throws in a long shot that Lundqvist probably should have had. So a soft goal to force overtime, and then, again, look at this. 1909, period 9. This is the 6th overtime. As an aside here, watching this, they had the last highlight at the end of the 5th overtime where Zajac looked like he scored, but it was just after time ran out. So, it was almost like, the biggest tease you could think of. But the 6th overtime began. And, Zajac is going to win that puck, throw it to Boucher. Boucher carries it in. He goes to the corner, loses it, gets it back. Josefson throws it back to him, and then the sharp angle shot from number 69 himself, Reed Boucher, scoring the most important goal in Madison Square Garden's history, at least within the last, however many years in EHM. So Reed Boucher, the broadcast probably would have said, thank God the game's over, we can all go home, and the Devils will be going home to play, and the Rangers will be going home to sleep off for the rest of the summer. This was crazy. And this was definitely Corey Schneider's best game. 70 saves. He was a 10. Lundqvist was a 9. I mean, that's just perfect here. Schneider's a 10. Lundqvist is a 9. Devils win. Rangers lose. Devils move on to the playoffs. Rangers go home. You can see here the defense, not a very good night for the Devils defense. Larson was a 4, and he played 66 minutes in this one. Green played 60 minutes. He was a 5. Like these are the numbers you don't want to see from defending players. Maybe that's a function of how many shots were allowed, and maybe that's also a function of how many minutes they all played. But you could see between the two sides here, not a whole lot of great performances just because you played so many minutes. Everybody gets tired and they just don't succeed and so forth. But this is a game where Rick Nash had 18 attempted shots and 11 got on net, and of course none of them went anywhere. And as for the Devils, it was a little better distributed, but Henrique was your big shooter in this one. He scored the one goal to get the Devils back in the game. But Reid Boucher was the hero of the night. He had 8 attempted shots, 2 only got on net, but thankfully, 1 had to go in. And of course, after 161 minutes, Schneider's a perfect 100 fatigue because he's just the best conditioned athlete ever, or Sports Interactive doesn't know how to handle fatigue for goaltenders. Anyway, so the Devils win a massive series. And just to look at the playoff tree, it was the only series in the first round to go to 7 games. San Jose and St. Louis bodied their respective opponents. LA surprised the Edmonton Oilers. Dallas beat the Minnesota Wild. And in the East, Tampa Bay just crushed Columbus. Montreal surprised Detroit and beat them badly. And Washington got away from the Islanders. So the Devils were the only ones that really had to make a comeback and get going in terms of playoff stats in the playoffs only. Your leading scorers do include some Devils on here, thankfully. Yuri Lucy is your leading right now with 6 points in 8 games, including that one game against Washington. But you see Stempniak, Henrique, Mahalik, and Severson. Severson has been fantastic in these playoffs. Just going back to the Devils. Playoffs. Oh, I want to see stats. That's what I want. So here's the playoff stats for the Devils so far, and we could just go by rating here. Schneider has obviously been excellent at 8.5, but Severson has really come alive in these playoff games so far, which is fantastic because it actually shows that he may not be a scrub player like AAtJ implied for most of the season where he was just really struggling here. And Mahalik has been great, Mateau has been great, Stempniak has been great, Lucy has been great, a lot of great players. And you could also see that Mike Camilleri finally is back from injury, and he played in his first game. He got 4 shots against Washington, and he got a 7. So good to see him back. I will say that I had to abuse my powers and force Mahalik into the lineup after Camilleri returned. Apparently, AI John Hines wanted Mahalik to sit, and I just said to myself, I am not letting Tuomo Ruutu play ahead of Milan Mahalik ever. So that's what I did. I don't think you'll care because I think you would agree. If we just look briefly at the roster here, Josefsson and Ruutu are only unhappy because they would like new contracts. I am not giving them new contracts right now. We have the playoffs to worry about. But Camilleri is back, and the Devils are back, end of the month with a win. It looked like that Johansson and Kuznetsov were going to make it a long night to start, but the Devils, like the Lightning game, just went on and just never looked back with goals from Mateau, Mahalik, Boucher, Brian O'Neill in the playoffs. Because Brian O'Neill in the playoffs is a guy you don't want to mess with. And Kyle Palmieri with an empty. And you can see Mahalik also contributed. So even though he's playing fewer minutes because Camilleri's back, the guy was just very productive. And he was the best player on the ice for the Devils. Severson got a 10, so, that helped his rating. And Boucher was also a 10. Great games all around from most of the Devils except for, Zajac. But, and the Capitals, they started off well, but they just faded. Simple as that. It should be an interesting series because Holtby has been one of the few goaltenders that has been close to Schneider in terms of total average rating. But Devils winning that first game is a very good thing. And as we look ahead to May, we've got the next 2 games in quick succession and then the 4th game on Wednesday. So in any case, the goal of this whole let's redo the season in EHM was just to have a bit of fun during the offseason and see if the Devils could make the playoffs. And I was expecting a lot of changes to the roster. A lot of changes were suggested. The game didn't want to do any of them. So we didn't do much of anything. But it turned out we didn't have to because Corey Schneider's incredible in this game. And a couple of the other Devils that in real life didn't work out for one reason or another or got too injured, they didn't get injured in this game. And they were very good. So I would say that, the Devils met the goal of making the playoffs, and beating the Rangers is always something to be worthwhile, and it was definitely an epic game to keep hitting that continue button to see OT1, OT2, OT3, OT4, OT5, hoping that the next highlight you see is a guy in white, because it was a road game for the Devils, have the little puck on their stick and hope that puck was going to get past number 30 in blue and end the game. And thankfully it did, only in the 6th overtime. So In any case, I'm happy even if Washington turns around and wins all the games and goes on to win the Cup. I think it was a successful season in redoing 2015-16 New Jersey and EHM. So here's what's going to happen here. Obviously, I'm going to sim the next few games. There's no real suggestions to take. Albany's not in the playoffs. Sarnia, I think, just got bounced out. But for the most part, the Devils are doing so well right now, I don't really want to make changes to their lineup. So there's no suggestions for you all to make. It's really just you get to see how the team really does over the next few weeks. I will provide the next video once the playoffs are over, and that will probably be, the end of the season. I don't plan on showing off the draft. I might show it off maybe just to show off what a draft looks like and show that in this world, Jacob Chitrin was rated higher than Austin Matthews. Don't worry, Austin Matthews is number 2. It's not that crazy. But the fact of the matter is that we're near the end of this long series, and I appreciate that many of you have commented and shown some interest on the site. And who knows, maybe we'll do it again next summer. So we'll see. We'll play it out. We'll see where the playoffs go. If the Devils go further than Washington, I'll sim that obviously up until the end of May, and if they really go to the Stanley Cup Finals, then you'll see a June video. And otherwise, this may be the penultimate video. Part of me hopes it isn't, but I'm very pleased with how the game turned out because, hey, made the playoffs and beat the Rangers. What more can you ask for? Anyway, this is John Fisher at All About the Jersey. And again, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and thank you for reading the site.